Hip hip hooray.
It's a reading day.
It's a reading day. You'll notice that we are not at our usual location today. Where we are is actually right here in Elizabethtown at the Nature Park at the Veterans Memorial here.
You may hear kids running and playing on this beautiful day.
It is a gorgeous day.
It is.
Today is Veterans Day. So you should have already watched a video from Mr. Mudd that explained a little bit of the importance of today. But Veterans Day is a day that we honor and recognize our veterans. So those are members of all 5 of our military branches. And it's just a day that we stop and take the time to say thank you. So we thought it would be so perfect if we did the story The Wall. So we kind of interrupted your regularly scheduled program to bring you a special story that was specific for today in remembering and honoring those veterans that have served for us. This particular wall that we are at today is in honor of our Vietnam veterans. So for you all, you possibly have a grandparent or a great-grandparent that served in the Vietnam War. And those are our living legends today.
Absolutely.
So we want to say a special thank you to those. If you see anyone today that has served in our military, you tell them thank you. So this Vietnam Wall that we're here is a big part of the setting of our story that you just listened to in our live Google time, or you've taken a time out to click on the link in your Google slide for today and listen to the story. So the Vietnam Wall here, of course, is not the one in Washington, D.C., where the setting of our story is.
Ours is quite impressive.
It is very impressive.
It is quite impressive, though. I'm very proud.
It is almost to the same scale.
Wow.
So this is 80% of the actual size of the Vietnam Wall that is in Washington, D.C., but it does include every name that the wall in Washington, D.C. includes. So there are over 58,000 names on this wall. So Miss Jackson and I were just having a conversation. There may be names on this wall that we need to take the time and figure out if they're on here.
You'll notice when you listen, watch, however you choose to do the page details, I have my dad's flag, all of his medals, and the tanks that he was the mechanic for in Vietnam in the background. So when you watch the video of the page details, if you look up at the top of the book, you'll see my dad, who was enlisted, drafted in 1965.
Okay.
With my son Ethan, and the exact tank that he was trained to work on in some of the most dangerous areas, because of course that's when the tanks would break down.
Right.
Is when they were
in the most dangerous
in the worst
spots.
areas.
Wow.
And that's what he was trained to do.
Right.
So that's why I included that in the background of the page details, because it's extra special to me.
Well, and we encourage you to have those conversations with your family too, because you may have veterans in your family that you're unaware of. Mm-hmm. So maybe ask and have those conversations at home and see what you can learn about your own family history today. So apart from honoring our veterans and coming from this super great location, we do have, of course, a comprehension skill that we want to talk about, as we would with anything we read. So today's story we did, of course, is a story. It is fiction. It has characters, a setting, and plot. And what we really want to focus on today, though, is it's a target, couldn't think of the word, that we are constantly working towards, of referring to those details and examples in the text. When Explain What Says text explicitly, that means it's right there. What color was the boy's hat? That's something that's specifically in the text. But we're focusing on this second part. We want to focus on drawing inferences from the text.
What it means to infer.
To infer is when you take in all the clues and you make an assumption in a way, but it's educated.
It's an educated guess.
Right. And you have evidence in the text that will support that. So that's that making inferences. You use what is explicitly said in the text to draw an idea outside of those words that is supported from what's there.
Absolutely.
So,
and then you might get to confirm before the story is over, were you correct?
That's always true. I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of times
Eve Bunting is one of our favorite authors. That
Such
she's
wonderful
amazing
author.
to wrap that up for us often.
Yes.
Oftentimes. So before we get into talking about things that we want to point out in the book, we want to make sure that you guys understand that this wall and the wall in Washington, D.C., they are monuments.
Yes.
So just because they are not tall, thin, maybe what you're used to seeing, the wall is actually a monument. So we wanted to just make sure and clarify that you guys understand that.
Right, and because it's a monument, we talk about, and we haven't talked about it a lot, but when we're reading fiction and poetry especially, there's a tone or a mood that the author creates. And because when you're at a memorial, that's a place of honor, you can sense that in Miss Bunting in the way that she wrote this story.
Absolutely.
In that it's a quiet.
It is. And you guys may have noticed when Miss Paulson and I started today, we weren't high energy like we normally are.
Right.
Because that would have been disrespectful to those visiting the monument, and just disrespectful to the wall itself. So that's why we came in kind of calm,
A little calmer.
cool. We set the tone for you, for sure.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Do you want to take us
Yes,
through some of
I
those
would.
inferencing
If
ideas
you could be
that
my
we
book
want
model,
I will.
that would be amazing. So some things that I want to share with you guys that makes this one of my all-time favorite books is just some questions that I want you to be thinking about before we dive in and read it 1, 2, hopefully 3 times. Why do we think the pages, the illustrations, why are they blurred? It's very unusual for a mentor text for it to be blurred. So just think about that. I'm not going to tell you why.
Right.
These are just questions that I want you to ask as you enjoy the book. Okay? We've talked about that the wall is a monument. We talked about we're going to learn to infer. I'm going to share with you, and my students who have had me in the past know, one of my best ways to teach inference and how to infer is the weather. So if I wake up one morning and I put on my coziest sweatshirt, my favorite leggings, my big, thick, fluffy socks, I dig in the coat closet and I find my warmest coat, my super soft earmuffs, wrap up in my scarf, what can you infer about the weather?
I know. It's got to be winter.
Is it
It's
100
cold.
degrees outside and I'm headed to the pool?
Absolutely not.
You haven't watched the weather forecast, you haven't read the weather forecast, and I didn't tell you.
That's right.
I'm just leading you to believe that it is
It's cold.
Freezing
out.
cold.
Freezing cold out there. That's making an inference. That's a great example
That's the
that I think we
only-
all can
that's
get on
that's one of the
on board
best
with.
ones that I like to use.
Absolutely.
Something else I want you to think about from the book when you're looking through or listening is, how can you infer what day of the week is it? And for those of you who have visited the actual monument in DC, you may get this before others, but it's just a great inference question. What day of the week might it be?
Flipping through the pages and looking at the illustrations to help with that inference.
And we want you to remember that the wall, it brings us all together. And that's super, super important, especially for those of us that maybe either have lost loved ones or we have family members that we honor. It does truly bring us all together, okay? Although we're not talking about visualizing, we did last week.
Right.
So I want you to think about when the author, Miss Bunting, when she really stirs that visualizing in your mind, in your brain. I want you to think about how she is leading you to see the wall. And truly, as Miss Paulson and I already discussed a little bit, it really is a wordless experience. If there were no words on these pages, we could experience the same feelings as we would with words. And if you're ever here visiting our wall, you may notice there may be people here in silence, even if they have loved ones with them. It truly is a wordless experience because in this book, the pictures, the illustrations, you really need to study them because they speak more than the words.
They do.
Really do. And that's rare for us with a book.
Right.
That's rare for us to find with a book.
We were talking about tone and mood. I also
Yes.
think about just looking up at look at the sky. The way the
Is there a
illustrations
little peak of blue? It
in
seems
the
like in one of the
sky.
pages, there's a
Yes.
little peep of blue. And to me, that's just a symbol of hope.
Hope. Right
Just
there.
a
The
little,
last.
oh, there we go.
The last
Just
picture
a
there.
little symbol of hope right there.
But that kind
as
of
they
helps
leave.
just set the mood
Yeah.
a little for us.
And something else that Miss Paulson and I love is we want you to notice that at the beginning of the story, you can't make out the names on the wall at all. They are extremely blurry.
Very
But as the book progresses, they become squiggles. And then they're clear. Why do you think that is? I want you to think about that. And then the page. Why would they do that? Why would the author include the Others are sharing in the struggle.
Right.
And it's a lot more difficult for some than others, for sure. So we know by the end the names are large and clear. Notice for when the author uses words over and over again. And why would she do that? Why would she repeat words such as searching over and over again? That means the words are very important to our story. What does a blurry voice sound like? Miss Bunting writes that their voice blurs.
Yes.
I know how my voice sounds when it blurs, but I want you to really think about it. What does a blurry voice sound like? I love that description. I just really do. And it's okay to go through this book and say, I don't know, and I wonder why. Because I do it every time, and I've probably read this book 50 times, at least. At least 50 times. It's by far one of my favorites for Veterans Day. And then let's talk real quick about dialogue. Because it's unusual to have a lot of dialogue in a mentor text. Would you agree?
Yes.
A lot of dialogue, because it kind of gets messy. But Miss Bunting does an amazing job, because you will notice she starts out with small bits of dialogue, just little pieces, but it builds and it builds. And by the end of the story, each page, the majority of the words are dialogue.
Yes.
So we make that connection too. I'm going to let you share because my voice feels a little blurry.
Your voice is feeling a little blurry.
It does. It does. Feels a little blurry. Why we have more and more dialogue near the end.
What I think happens through by the end of the story is because it is a father taking his son to the wall, he's telling him the story of his grandfather that the son never was able to meet. And so as the story goes, that conversation starts to build, because I think we realize when we have lost those that we love, it's once you start to talk about them, it's really hard to stop.
And we start to share
More and
and
more.
more memories because we want everyone to know.
Yes.
It keeps them alive in our spirits and our souls and in our daily walk.
And a lot of times it's a thing that helps us to be able to do that. And in this case, it is this wall that opens up that conversation between this father and son.
And I love when Miss Bunting says that the wall is for all of us.
It's for all of us.
It's for all of us. It's for all of us. And we mentioned with inference, sometimes authors will answer. How does Miss Bunting answer us? When I asked you, what day of the week? What day of the week is it at the wall? When was this written? And we asked you if you've ever been there, you know what the crowd is like.
Right. And so on this page here, we know that, or it helps us narrow it down, that this isn't taking place over a weekend when there would be probably far more visitors at the wall, but in the week, because it says a bunch of big girls in school uniforms came down the path, their teachers with them. They are all carrying more of those little flags. So, a teacher's bringing a group down to the wall. We don't do that usually on the weekends.
No. So we confirmed that we were amazing to infer it wasn't the weekend. It was for sure a weekday. And some authors are really good to us that way.
I know.
They are. So we hope that you enjoy the wall as much as we have. And we cannot wait to get into our breakout groups, listen to the story together.
Yes. I know we'll have great conversations, or will have had.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
It'll be great. Just today, enjoy this, and remember to thank those veterans that are around you and a part of your life.
And even share this story with someone else.
Absolutely.
It's a way that you can honor someone in your life on Veterans Day just by sharing the story with them.
We're all learning a little something, hopefully, about Veterans Day and the meaning of this wall and what it means to honor.
Absolutely.
Okay?
So in keeping with our mood and tone,
Here we go.
as I walk away, Miss
Yes.
Paulson, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Until
We
we
read
read
again.
again.
Happy Veterans Day.
Happy Veterans Day.